Arturo Castellanos. Right now I'm currently assigned to our north safe unit, north side of town.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up pretty much where Castroville and Guadalupe Street meet, 19th Street, right about that area. Growing up, I went to probably the rival, who is at the Boys and Girls Club, Calderon Boys and Girls Club. I used to come out here, play some basketball, and looking around, I'll tell you what, I don't think it looked like this, 20 some odd years ago. I think.
What do you think is your favorite memory from Bienvenidos?
My favorite memory definitely is my friends. My favorite memory is, just like I said earlier, having the opportunity to have the Boys and Girls Club in my life. The best memory for sure is the people that were there to be there with us while my parents had to work. So the staff, I can see their faces like it was just yesterday, where they kind of took the opportunity to always ask, where you at? Where were you yesterday? Always checking in on me. How's your grades? You still going to class? All those things are the things that I really look back on and really believe that's what made the difference in my life.
Do you have a favorite memory, like working here, or like say you had a part-time job here?
No, so I came out here during my training rides the first time. I remember driving around and I had what we call a FTO, a field training officer, and it was the overnight shift. He was driving me around and we ended up pretty much on the street that I grew up in. I don't know if you know, I'm not even sure if it's still there. It's Legal's Barber Shop. It used to be an old Centennial, and now it's I believe like a private school or some sort, or a charter school. Anyways, the street name, we're driving down and he's like, whatever you do, don't what do you say, don't call this street this specific name. And I was like, man, that's what I called it. Like all my life that's what I called it. It's Lee Rocks, but the proper way to pronounce it is Lee Road. And I was like, yeah, I don't care. I called it Lee Rocks for the remainder. And yeah, you heard people chuckle and people send messages like, really? But they knew I grew up in the area, so they kind of enjoyed it. So though that first initial memory, the next time I came around, like 6 years later, after working a different north side area overnight, I came down here for about almost 2 years in the daylight time frame, 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. And I remember driving down one of the streets, kind of looking around just like I did this morning, driving out here, and all these memories start coming back about how it was to be here. As I'm driving, I have my windows down, and then I hear my first name, which again, friends call me Arthur. So they're like, Arthur, and I'm like, what the heck? Like, man, I haven't heard that since I don't know when, especially in a police uniform, especially in a police car. But it ended up being a sister of my girlfriend that I had back then. So it was kind of a weird deal, and they just stopped me. We caught up a lot. So those are my favorite parts.
If you could change something about the Westside, what would you change?
I wouldn't. The people are great. I've worked several parts of the city, and the whole city, don't get me wrong, the whole city has this great respect towards law enforcement. If I had the opportunity to change anything, is just the aspect that I grew up in. I grew up in between the 90s, 90 to 95. And during that time frame, there's certain areas that, if you walk through that area, there was somebody there that was there to mess with you, whether it was a gang member or a police officer, right? So I remember one day I was sitting there at the bus stop, just over there, 19th Street, where Castroville turns to Guadalupe, or vice versa. And I'm sitting there waiting for the bus, and a couple of dudes drive up, and they jump out of their car, and they're like, hey bro, what gang are you in? And I'm like, dude, I'm not in a gang. Leave me alone, I'm just waiting for the bus, I'm trying to get somewhere. They took off, right? Maybe one of them recognized me. I had several of those occurrences where somebody was like, oh, what gang are you in? And then they're like, oh no, that's Art, he doesn't belong to a gang. And then right after that, there was a police officer that drove up. And same thing, police officers came out and they're like, hey, what gang are you at? And I'm like, what, am I getting punked? Right? The show. And I'm like, where's the cameras? What the hell just happened? So that part of it would be something that I wish there was some way to let people know that you don't have to be part of a gang that's there to hurt people. You can be part of a gang of friends, right, where that look after each other, that check in on each other, but they're not out there to do stupid things like tagging an area up and making it look bad, beating up on people and taking their stuff. You know, that aspect, and it's not only in our area here, it's in several areas around the city, but if we can get rid of that, I think it would be a super great place. There's homelessness also that comes around. There's people with drug addictions. It's not just here, but you can see it a lot more. So those aspects of, and I think it boils down to people not really having that support system, right? Maybe their parents ain't there, or maybe they lost their parents. Maybe, you know, anything could have happened. But if we could have more places like Good Samaritan, more places like West End, I don't know if that's out there still, and the Boys and Girls Club. If we could have more community centers, more places where kids can come and feel safe, I think that would help a lot.
Do you think because you lived in the West Side, it made it harder for you to do what like you do now?
Parts of it. So the parts where I remember interviewing, and you know, it sometimes felt like, okay, I wasn't good enough, or you know, what school did you go to, and how were your grades, and okay, and your parents. You know, my father spent some time in prison. You know, he made a bad choice, so he was gone for a long period of time. So when I brought up those things, and I was super honest about the things that I did that were wrong, that they were kind of like, are you sure that's it? Or at least it felt that way to me. But I do want to say that this area made me a better person. It really did. It allowed me to figure people out. You know, and when people know that you mean well, no matter, like just like I brought up those guys in the gang, there could have been some times where I was walking around in the wrong place, wrong time, and if somebody in that group didn't know that I was not a part of a gang, it could have been a lot worse. I think it actually helped me a lot. I'm able to now talk to people the way they should be spoken to, with respect, compassion. So I don't think the challenges were for myself, where I felt like I wasn't good enough. You know, that's something that in life people have to do better at. Always go out there and say, hey, I'm good enough. And if I'm not good enough, I can try hard enough and I'll be able to achieve those things. So in no way did I feel growing up here. But I know that when I tell people, especially when I go after they made calls out here for some of the bad stuff that come out here, they're kind of like, man, you grew up in that area. Like, how did you make it? How did you do it? And at the end of the day, a lot of them were just choices. You make a bad choice, there's consequences to that bad choice. You make good choices, there's a lot of positive that can come out of it. And when somebody looks at you and they figure out, man, you grew up in this area and you're this smart and you stayed away from all that stuff, those things will help you out more than you know, because they're gonna see, man, I've seen some people out there and they're not trying very hard, they're joining a gang, doing dumb things with those, doing drugs because it's all around them, making bad choices. So you're in an area where bad choices are happening around us, and if you're able to stay away from making those bad choices, people are going to look at you and say, we want that person. They will. You can go and apply for colleges, you can go and they'll find out, okay, where did you grow up in? And then you're going to have people that grew up in this place that became very successful, and they're going to end up saying, you know what, I'm going to invest in this kid. I'm going to give them money, scholarships. There's scholarships up there. I mean, there's just so many things that are out there that people don't know. And until you surround yourself by people that have been through that path, and I think I've seen a couple that have been to school, they look like they've been to college, and then now they understand how it works. And some people do think it's like unachievable. Like, I'm never going to get a home, I'm never going to get a car, this is where I'm going to be for the rest of my life, and it's not that way. You put in some effort, and you're going to be better than most.
Alright, well, thank you for your time, and I appreciate you coming out here and stuff. And hopefully we can interview more officers that grew up here. And thank you for telling us about your past and stuff.
I really appreciate y'all, taking the opportunity to talk to officers one-on-one, versus being in a crowd and telling them how bad they are. So I really appreciate that. Thanks, Tyson. Appreciate it. Thank you.